Oh, now we've lost Debbie.
No, there's always a lag time between when I press the record button and when you actually get the notification.
There we go. Fantastic. Thank you. Well, I would like to call to order the April 20th, 2022 board meeting to order, and to remind everyone to please mute your audio when not speaking, as well as state your name prior to making a comment or motion, and second for an action item. Thank you. I'll begin by asking each commissioner to please respond with a here when I call out their name. Commissioner Bagnell?
I am here just as a guest.
Commissioner Doan?
I am here as a full-fledged member.
Oh, Commissioner Duggan?
Present, or should I say here?
And Commissioner Schmidt?
Here.
Fantastic. Thank you. We'll begin this evening by a report from our Chief Executive Officer and management and staff. Tom, how you feeling?
Well, okay. I'm happy for Tylenol. It works wonders. So I came down with some bug. I've tested for COVID. I haven't tested positive. I did get exposed. So I'll test again and see, but even if I'm positive, I can't change it. So whatever it is I've got. So, all right. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, what did I do? I messed up here. What happened to the presentation? There we go. It's coming back.
Looks like Dave rescued you there.
Thank you, Dave. Can I try to take control? There we go. All right. Let's get to my slide here. Okay. For the month of March 2022, the Portland Water Bureau reported 4 cryptosporidiumosis detections in water samples collected from the Bull Run headworks. Portland Water Bureau will continue increase sampling 4 times per week until there are at least 3 weeks without any detections. The Oregon Health Authority has determined that the public does not need to take additional protections at this time. Complete results of Portland's cryptosporidium monitoring are posted on the City of Portland's website. Let's see. So a little update on one of the many projects we now have underway, asset management project milestone that we've hit. The asset management project hit a milestone. It completed the draft roadmap, which we're going to show you here in just a moment. The draft will be under staff and leadership review for a few weeks, so we're looking at all the elements. The vision statement for the project is to continue to develop, implement, streamline, and sustain an asset management program to align with the district's mission, vision, and values. As you know, we've also kicked off our work for mission and vision and values. So all of this is lining up or aligning. Asset management provides a systematic process for onboarding, grading, and managing resources to maximize efficiency and effectiveness, as well as report on service levels and plan for future investments. The roadmap will set in motion a work plan for complete foundational projects in the next 2 years. So what is a roadmap? Well, we often talk about asset management as a journey. And I apologize if this is too small to see for some of you. But the concept here is we are in the development stage, this lower part of the slide. And we are working our way towards full implementation. So there's a lot of steps in the process here that we're working on. As once we get this fully up and running, the desire here is that this really guides us in our future budget discussions. And why and how will, let me go to the next slide here and give you a parallel. So asset management, there's an analogy for car maintenance that a lot of people use, and I'm going to steal it and use it here. If you do nothing with your car, there ends up being severe consequences. You know, it's that saying, I tell my kids, you know, yeah, you don't have to check the oil, but you're going to pay a heavy price at some point for not doing it. So um, take the 5 minutes, pull the dipstick, and check. And if you do nothing, there will be severe consequences. And as a car ages, it develops blemishes and problems, which vary anywhere from scratches to engine failure. And as an owner, we need to make strategic choices about what to and when to attend to diagnostic, maintenance, and repair services. So at some point, you have to replace your car. You want to be sure that you have a systematic way to determine a schedule for these same diagnostic, maintenance, repair, and replacement activities within the water systems we manage for our customers. So, you know, essentially, if you have unlimited funds and unlimited resources, you know what, maintenance isn't a big deal. But the reality is we don't. And and we have a fiduciary responsibility to our customers to manage our assets in a way that maximizes their lifespan and replaces them at an appropriate time and interval. That's what asset management really allows us to do. It allows us to make those kinds of informed decisions. And what we're doing is we're taking an asset management program that had been partially developed, but we're really now taking it to the next level, and really making it something that is much more robust, and also something that really engages and involves all the staff. Because frankly, asset management, it comes down to the boots on the ground and the eyes in the field. They're the ones that see the assets every day. So they have to buy into this so that we're actually collecting good information and the right information to be able to make these decisions. So a lot of what we're doing now is working with staff on those things. So next, May Talkin' Water, Tvwd's next virtual forum will be held at noon on May 9th and feature water efficient irrigation. Pre-registration is not required for this event. You can find the link. There it is. I won't I won't read it out, but you follow that link and you can attend the event. So I think we reported a while back that these have been very popular and have gotten not only good initial attendance compared to other outreach efforts we've done, they've gotten very good follow-up. So in other words, we've got a lot of people, customers that actually go to our website and watch these presentations that we give after the fact. So these live on our website. They're there for people to view and see. And in fact, in talking with some of the neighboring agencies, they've even utilized some of those. They've even gone and looked at them. And so in particular, I had a woman recently tell me that she utilized the distribution anatomy presentation that was given by our staff, and it really helped her understand the work that she's doing. So, so there you go. So unless there are questions for me, I'm going to be turning this over to Dave Kraska for the safety minute.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, commissioners. Tonight I've got a safety minute and I've got the department report. You hear from me a lot, so over pretty much every month. So I'm going to keep my presentations pretty brief because you got some pretty other heavy duty items to get through tonight. Safety moment tonight is about medication safety, in particular protecting children. So starting off, we want to protect children in terms of dosing and storing medicines safely. And each year, thousands of children are treated in emergency departments after finding and ingesting medicine or after accidentally being given the wrong amount. So learn how to keep children safe by practicing safe dosing and storage. So talking about medicine dosing, 4 simple tips here. First is know the dose. Obviously, read all the information on the medicine label and follow the directions. Second is measure the right amount. Pay attention to that. Always measure your child's dose using the appropriate device, oral syringe or dosing cup that comes with the medicine. And using the right tool. If you don't have one of those, the correct dosing device, be sure to get one from your pharmacist. And get any questions answered. If you do not understand the instructions in your label or how to use the dosing device, talk to your pharmacist or doctor. Regarding safe medicine storage, 5 simple tips here. Choosing a safe spot, obviously up and away and out of sight and reach of children. Locking the safety cap when you're done and putting the medicines away after locking the safety cap. Don't give the kids an opportunity to try to figure them out. Remind guests, if you have guests coming over to your house that might have medicines in their purses or coats, be sure to put those away in a safe place. And the same rules when traveling. Put any medicines in a safe place out of sight and reach of young children. Consider using your hotel safe if appropriate and available. That's it for the safety moment. Moving on now to the department report. As I mentioned, you hear from me pretty much every month. I give you the update on the program. I talk about what activities are going on at the Willamette Water Supply System Commission, our agenda for the board, the forecast, and construction activity. There's a lot of other activity going on in the program. And so I wanted to briefly cover these for you tonight, mostly for awareness, but these topics, you're probably going to be hearing about them more from me over the next few years as we begin to prepare for successful operations. And preparing for successful operations doesn't just happen on its own and won't happen overnight. Frankly, we've been working on this for years now. Ongoing operations planning began in 2017. Water supply integration planning began in 2018, and commissioning and startup planning started a few years ago in 2019. So these are the 3 major elements of preparing for successful operations that we want to be ready to go when the system is built. And a smooth transition from construction to operations is critical to realizing the massive benefits of our investment, massive investment. So talk about each one of these briefly, talk about ongoing operations planning. This is a simple chart, starts in 2019 being the date that we actually completed the WWSS IGA and formed the WWSS Commission. You can see the first number of years there is the plan development, our operations plan development. I'll explain a little bit later what I mean by that. Right now we're in 2022, so we're pretty much in the thick of our plan development. We're aiming to have a draft overall operations plan in about a year. And Commissioner Schmidt, you have a question? I think you've got a question. You've got a muted mic and a hand up.
Oh, that photo of the lady giving medicine to a child with a syringe, you have to watch those syringes because they have several different volumes on them. And so you have to watch to make sure you're getting the right one. Anyway.
Very good, thanks. Yeah, that's a great tip. Yeah, if you're using a syringe, make sure it's the right one, the right measurements on it, make sure it's clean before you use it. Yeah, so thanks for that.
Yeah.
All right, continuing on back with operations. Now back to our timeline here. So we're in the middle of plan development. Once we have the draft plan developed, then we're expecting to do some plan refinement. The plan refinement period will be during our major construction activities. We might be learning things during those construction activities that we'll want to refine the plan with. And it will also be basically dry labbing or testing our plan before we actually want to implement it, to make sure that we're all on board before we actually have to implement it. So a couple of years of plan refinement before we actually get into implementation. Now, when we started operations planning, we convened a very large group of us, everyone at Tvwd that may be related to operations, and same thing at Hillsborough. And we asked them to write on Post-it notes what operations meant to them, because we expected there's going to be a lot of different definitions of it. And we ended up with 350 Post-it notes of what operations meant to folks. And so we had to take all of those Post-it notes and try to create some order out of them. And this is what we came up with, is that all of those Post-it notes landed into these 5 groups, that we needed to develop an operational philosophy. We needed to figure out our operations as it relates to water quality and regulatory compliance, as it relates to data and asset management, governance and commitments, and financial management. So these are all the key elements of ongoing operations. Where we're at right now is all of those focus groups are working on our WWSS workload estimates. It's essentially each one of those groups is trying to figure out how many hours per year are going to be dedicated to all the activities that we're identifying in our operations plan. And that's going to lead to how many people we need to run the WWSS. Frankly, right now, we've kind of done this ground up estimate of that. And we're kind of like looking at the number and thinking that might be a little bit high. And so right now we're trying to right size that and move back and forth in terms of figuring out exactly how many more people we need before 2026 comes along. What does the operations plan look like? It looks like this. Now, this is a very small, but simply put, it's 13 chapters of this document. Going down the left-hand side there, we've got an introduction chapter. We talk about ownership and administration, our organizational structure and staffing, the WWSS infrastructure, operational philosophy, maintenance philosophy, safety, security, asset management, water quality, environmental, contracts and services, financial management, and commitments management. Frankly, this is a very comprehensive approach to all over ongoing operations. And we'll get through this. We'll develop our operations plan. You can see we're making a lot of progress. We're going to get this to 100% in a year for our draft plan. And it'll be a great foundation for us to move into ongoing operations. Now, a quick note about water supply integration planning, another key element of it. So what is this project? So water supply integration plans the integration of the WWSS. It prepares the existing systems, Tvwd, Beaverton, and Hillsborough systems, to receive water from the WWSS. It's also integrated with our water treatment plant design project to make sure the two of those work together. It identifies potential needs in the distribution, whether there's any modifications needed. And the main goal is to protect public health through and after the transition to the new supply. Really what we're shooting for is an uneventful integration is key to the overall WWSS success. Once people are receiving the water, we really want it to be a non-event from the customer standpoint. So as far as the goals, these 4 main goals of this project: establish the finished water quality from the WWSS, assess the compatibility with the existing distribution systems, define the system preparation needs, and develop the integration schedule. We've accomplished the first 3 bullets already. We're working through the 4th right now, working on that integration schedule. Regarding our integration process, it started with desktop studies, going into demonstration testing, and finally our integration plan. Right now we're wrapping up and completing some of our demonstration testing and moving into our integration planning. And finally, commissioning and startup planning. What is that? So on the right-hand side, you can see kind of a schematic of our overall WWSS, or at least from the water treatment plant north. And essentially, with the commissioning and startup of the overall WWSS will follow after all of the elements are completed. All of the pipelines are installed and individually tested. After the treatment plant is complete and the treatment plant is individually tested itself, then we have to commission the entire WWSS from the treatment plant through the whole transmission system. And what we're addressing there is possible water quality changes as the water flows through the new system. Since all of these large diameter transmission mains are mortar lined, what we're anticipating is the pH will rise in the pipeline as some of the lime comes out of the cement. And so we need to be very conscious of that as we're preparing to deliver the water into the distribution systems, that the pH isn't too high, that the TDS isn't too high, that the disinfectant residuals are correct. All of this will take some time to work through the system. And so what we have to do is test the system for a period of time, flowing water through it before we actually send it to the distribution system. And so it takes a lot of planning to figure out how to go about doing that and essentially wasting water for a period of time in a safe and environmentally sound manner while we make sure the system is operating correctly and that the water being sent through the system is of the right characteristics before it goes into the distribution system. So it's a very much in the weeds sort of process, but it's absolutely critical to the success of us finishing this overall project and getting to a point where we're into ongoing operations. So recent accomplishments in this work is that we've completed some modeling of the JWC system to determine whether some water from its system could help us with efficiently commissioning some of the transmission system. We're evaluating and preparing to design a blow-off at the Tualatin River near Beef Bend Road. That's going to be one of our major discharge points for wasting water, like I said, in a safe and environmentally sound manner. And we're conducting multiple workshops on the potential blow-off. Current focus areas are developing the conceptual plans for those blow-offs and revising our TM on the commissioning and startup plan. So wrapping this up, preparing for successful WWS startup and operations requires years of advanced planning by our multidisciplinary team. Benefits from dedicated involvement from TVWD and Hillsborough staff. It's critical that TVWD staff and Hillsborough staff, the folks that are actually going to be running the system, are engaged in this effort so that when they get the keys to the overall system, they own it, they understand it, and they know how it works. And it's critical to the successful completion of the Willamette Water Supply Program and the successful operation of the Willamette Water Supply System. So I tried to get through that pretty quick, probably took a little bit too long, but thank you, and I'd be glad to take any questions if there are any.
Well, Dave, I just want to thank you for anticipating all these needs. And I think back to where we were in 2018 and 2019, and we're about equal distance between then and when we have to get the system operational. So thank you for all that advanced planning and pulling all the pieces together.
I appreciate the support. Thank you.
Dave, this is Todd Sanders. I'm really excited to see that what you are talking about now is turning the system on. That's pretty amazing. That's exciting.
We've got a few years ahead of us of a lot of amazing, exciting, and terrifying stuff going on. So look forward to sharing it with you all.
Hopefully there will be a minimal amount of terrorizing.
Let's hope so.
This is Dick. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, I think that will do it for you today, sir. Thank you for your time. And now we will move on to our next item, which I believe is Commissioner Communications and reports of meetings attended. And if you would like, Commissioner Bagnell, will you start us this evening?
Sure. This is one of the things that's cool about being right at the front of the alphabet. You get your turn over with early. So my meetings attended on the 5th of April. I attended the board work session where we got our usual excellent update on the Willamette Water Supply System project. We got an update from Andrew on the CIS project, and we also got to hear about what our financial strategies might be in a go-forward manner, considering inflation and all the things that are happening. On the 8th of April, I went to the Barney and Joint Water Commission meeting where we got a budget presentation. We had updates on the pump situation and the chlorine situation, always fraught with tension. And then, of course, tonight's meeting, the regular board meeting with district business.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Bagnell. Commissioner Doan.
I attended the same meetings that Commissioner Bagnell attended. I don't have anything to add other than I'm glad it's the JWC's problem with pump vibration and chlorine rather than ours.
Thank you, Commissioner Doan. Commissioner Duggan.
This month, on the 5th, I attended the board workshop and executive session that has been talked about before. On the 7th, I attended the Willamette Water Supply System Board and executive session meeting. On the 12th, I attended a board agenda planning meeting with Tom and Todd. On the 12th again, that afternoon, I watched the video premiere of the State of the County address by our county commissioners. Also on the 12th that evening, I attended the CPO #1 meeting for Washington County where they had an election forum and candidates spoke for this upcoming election. On the 13th, I attended the Regional Water Providers Consortium Executive Committee, which is our regular 1/3 of a year meeting. Most important thing to come out of that meeting was that the chair and vice chair agreed to serve another year for the consortium. And then tonight's meeting.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Duggan. Commissioner Schmidt.
Yes, I attended the work session and tonight's meeting, and that's it.
Marvelous. Great. Thank you, Commissioner Schmidt. And for myself, I met on the 28th with our CEO, Tom Hickman, to get an update on the hiring or the release of the announcements for some of the positions that are currently vacant within the organization. On the 29th, I caught up on all the meeting minutes that needed to be signed. So I was in the Tvwd offices for just a short time there. On the 31st, I met with Norm Eder to get an update on lobbying efforts. And I guess all of our board members should be aware that there will be an increase in our lobbying effort by Tvwd here starting very soon. There was a few meetings last week I wasn't able to participate in. It was the first week of school. We have all of our meetings then as well. But there will be an increase in the outreach to both state and federal representatives for the state of Oregon. And that'll be very exciting. And I'm sure there'll be more about that as time comes. Everybody mentioned the monthly work session. Commissioner Doan and Bagnell both mentioned the JWC quarterly meeting where just before the meeting, Commissioner Doan was complimented by Nikki Iverson for his astute understanding of pump vibrations and how that everybody had retracted their initial poo-pooing at Commissioner Doan's comments and then acknowledged the fact that he actually probably knew more than the pump engineers that had placed the pumps and said it wasn't a problem. So Nikki Iverson from Hillsborough made a point of reaching out to Commissioner Doan and thanking him for being the one wise individual paying attention to the whole situation. Let's see, again on the 11th then got another update on hiring and staffing issues within the organization, replacing some fairly high up people. And then again, I met with on the 12th with Commissioner Duggan and Tom Hickman to go over the agenda planning. And then we had some JWC Executive Committee stuff over signing away our children's college fund to purchase chlorine for the JWC. The cost of chlorine has gone up considerably in 6 months' time. And I hope somebody somewhere around the world is making a lot of money on chlorine right now, because it sure is costing a lot of money to buy chlorine right now. And then tonight's meeting on the 20th. Okay. That will surmise our reports of meetings attended. And next item up is the topics to be raised by the commissioners. And so I'll then open the table up. Are there any topics to be raised by the commissioners this evening? All right. The sound of silence. Happy birthday to Paul. Although Carrie's not a commissioner, we will take a moment to say happy birthday to Paul. Happy birthday, Paul. 21. He turned 21 this year. Pete Boone, too. So we have 2 birthdays. There must have been, hopefully there was a lot of cake today in the office. So happy birthday, Pete, and happy birthday, Paul. All right. Next up is public comment, where public comment is set aside for persons wishing to address the board on items on the consent agenda and matters not on the agenda. Additional public comment will be invited on agenda items as they are presented. And do we have any persons this evening who would like to comment? Okay. Not hearing any, we'll move into this evening's consent agenda, where the consent agenda items are considered to be routine and may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Any board members may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action. Any items requested to be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion will be considered immediately after the board has approved those items for which do not require discussion. This evening, we have on the consent agenda the approval of the March 16, 2022 regular minutes and approval of the April 5th, 2022 work session minutes. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented?
This is Commissioner Duggan, so moved.
I'll second
And
that.
this is,
And that was seconded by Commissioner Schmidt.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask our district recorder to please provide the roll call vote?
Commissioner Bagnell,
yes.
Commissioner Doan,
Yes.
Commissioner Duggan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, everybody. The motion passes, and we'll move on to this evening's business agenda, where we will consider providing staff direction to update the district's financial plan and refer the question of rate increase frequency to the Rate Advisory Committee. And this evening, birthday boy Paul Matthews will be presenting.
Good evening, President Sanders, Commissioners. So I'm going to be very brief tonight on this issue. We spent quite a bit of time over the past several weeks talking about the financial strategies. And I want to first start by apologizing. I think we made the questions a little bit harder for you than they needed to be. And so we're trying to streamline this by taking it in steps. You might remember last at the work session, we had 4 scenarios that we were talking about, or 4 options. And I think there was confusion as to how the 4 of them related to each other. And so we're trying to streamline that into essentially 2 questions that we're going to ask tonight. And I'll go over each of these questions in a little bit more detail. The first one is, should Tvwd adjust the already adopted November 2022 rate? So you might remember that last year you adopted a rate that will take effect on November 1, 2022, that will increase the rates by 9.5%. So the first question is, should we adjust that 9.5% rate? The next question then has to do with the frequency of the rate increases, and should we refer that question to the Rate Advisory Committee and include it in the Rate Advisory Committee charter. So I'll talk about each of these in steps. First of all, let's take question number 1. And I'll have some numbers that of course, I can't do a presentation without numbers, so I will bring some numbers to bear here just in a moment. But the first question is, should TVWD adjust the already approved or adopted November 2022 rates? Deciding no on this option is essentially the status quo. If you tell us not to do it, that would be strategy 1, so to speak. And under that strategy, the board would take no action regarding the November 2022 rate. The rate that is currently adopted would go into effect, which is that 9.5%, and that's the rate that you adopted in September of 2021. So to do nothing would result in that first strategy 1. And we would then produce a financial plan based on that assumption that we are not changing the rate, the already adopted rate this fall. A yes decision would be what we describe as strategy 2, and that would, about implementing that option, you'll be directing staff to begin a rate process to revise that November rate. So we would work with our communications group, and we would set up a whole entire process to look at to get that rate approval process. And by and large, that would start in June, July, and August, and we would have the numbers for you in the financial strategy we would present in May. So the real question is, do we want to take action this fall, or do we want to wait until a later date? You saw these numbers. We've changed this table around just a little bit. We fine-tuned some of the assumptions within the financial strategy. Joe Healy done this, so we've got everything just a bit tighter than what we had before. So the question 1 that we have tonight is leave it alone at the 9.5 or pursue a rate option. And our proposal right now would be at the 14.25% effective November 2022. We'd immediately begin that rate process, planning for it, and do that in the summer. If we look at strategy 1, over the long term, we look out through the end of fiscal year 25, the beginning of 26, it would result in about 54.5% cumulative rate increases under that strategy. The difference between whether or not we do the second question, which is how frequently we do the rates, it's 12 cents. I mean, essentially, the strategies aren't different. That's why we're breaking these down into 2 questions. Do you want us to change the 9.5%? Because it really isn't going to have much effect when we get to the end of the strategy. In fact, it won't affect our financial plan that we want to bring to you. Strategy number 2, that results in about a 49% cumulative increase, so it's a little bit less than the strategy 1. Now, these numbers are all estimates. Keep in mind that the relative difference between them is probably about right. However, the actual amount of these will be determined over time based on a lot of things, a lot of information we don't have now. Future inflation, future interest rates, capital construction costs, change orders that might come up, all those things, all those risks still exist. But between these 2 strategies, this is how we would measure those. So that's the first question that we have. Essentially,
Paul?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Paul, Tom's got his hand up real quick. You might want to add something before you move forward.
Okay, Tom.
Yeah, I just want to point out that we'll be coming to the board to talk more about this, but just to give you some idea of the uncertainty here, the recent bids on MPE that we told you they came in higher than what was estimated, but that the higher, it's above what developed all these numbers. So just to be clear, that came in 9 million above what developed these numbers. So I just want you, we don't know how much that will, if at all, shift these numbers, but just to give you some idea that we're facing these continual increases that are going on. and you know, that there's still uncertainty here, even with these numbers.
Yes, a lot of uncertainty. But the relative differences we think are about the same. So there is somewhat of a financial benefit, and we'll talk about the pros and cons on the next slide here. Adjusting the already adopted rates, the pros from that is this is staff's opinion. You're obviously entitled to your own view of these things, but we think it's actually more transparent by updating our customers sooner. That in fact, it's our understanding that the cost of the program is affecting what the cost of water is going to be. And the sooner we tell our customers, we feel that that's an increase in transparency, and we owe it to our customers to let them know that. It'll improve the district's financial health and has the lowest overall rate increases that I described earlier, about that $3 per month when we get to the end of this. It helps protect the district's credit rating and maintains the lower, and may, emphasize may, because there's a lot of uncertainty there, but it may maintain lower cost to borrow funds. So we do want to protect our credit rating because that is obviously important as we go to the market to borrow additional funds to cover these inflationary increases in the program cost. And it reduces the potential for higher rate increases in the future should inflation accelerate, or should we hit one of those black swan events that could be out there that we have no control over. On the con side, it's an immediate impact on our customers. There's a perception, maybe a negative perception of changing an already adopted rate, the 9.5%. And currently, only our customer emergency assistance program is available to help our low-income customers. We're still anticipating going through a RAC process, completing the CIS project, and after that, take a period of time to implement other options for assisting low-income customers. We definitely want that in place before we have too many more rate increases, but it certainly wouldn't be in place by the time that November rolls around. So I'm going to pause here and see if there are any questions or comments about the pros and cons, and see if we can address any of those questions that might arise from that. Okay, seeing no questions, or rather hearing no questions, I'll move on to the second question, which is, and again, we want to separate these things. I think we conflated this for you during the work session. I think that was complicating matters. But should the rate advisory committee charter include reviewing the frequency of rate adjustments? One of the things that the district is looking at is adjusting rates every 6 months rather than once per biennium. And the question then is, does the board want to take immediate action to tell us, no, we're going to do this and move forward with that? Or does the board want to refer this question to the rate advisory committee and get a recommendation from them? In any event, whether the board directs us to do it without taking it to rate advisory committee, or the rate advisory committee reviews this and makes a recommendation to the board, we'll be prepared to do that in January of next year to be implemented at the May timeframe that we've talked about before. So this decision is important now because next month we're going to bring the RAC charter to you, and we want to make sure we know what we're going to ask the RAC, what policy questions we want to put to the RAC, what recommendations you're going to want from the RAC. If you want to make this decision without the RAC process, tell us that now. We won't put it in the charter. If you prefer to have the RAC give you a recommendation on this matter, then we'll put that in the charter and we'll bring that to you next month. But in any regard, we'll be prepared January to implement this process should the board make that decision, either after the RAC makes a recommendation or the board does its own deliberation. So the pros and cons, if we refer this question to the rate advisory committee, it gives us a broader perspective on the recommendation to the board, because the rate advisory committee is going to be designed to be a very diverse and large group of people who will be studying these issues. And it'll provide the board, again, just our opinion here, you may have different opinions, but it'll provide public support for the board action. We feel that if the rate advisory committee tells you this, whichever recommendation they have is in the interest of the community, we feel that provides more support for the board's action. Risks, I actually see a hand up from Commissioner Bagnall. I'm seeing that now. Commissioner Bagnall?
Hi, Paul. As much as I love to get citizen input, if the board feels strongly that we need to take some action, I don't want to get us into a situation where we are asking for public input that we are not prepared to take. You should only ever have a vote or have an advisory committee if you are fully prepared to take their recommendation, whatever it is. And I don't know, maybe I'm the only person on the board that feels that we have to do something sooner rather than later. And as much as I would love RAC input, what if they get it wrong?
And actually, Commissioner Bagnall, we said risk of not receiving a clear recommendation from the RAC, but there could be the risk of getting a recommendation from the RAC that is ill-suited for the district's needs. So that's a decision uniquely for the board to decide. Oh, Commissioner Doan. Commissioner Doan, we're not hearing you.
You're muted.
That's me. It wasn't the computer. I think we need to do something now to prepare the way. And I also think that we would be misusing an advisory committee if we weren't prepared to follow what they recommend. I don't think an advisory committee will say don't raise the rates at all. I think the last advisory committee we had was very helpful, and I think they were more for increasing rates more rapidly than I think the board was. So I think one, we have to follow or to the extent possible what the advisory committee recommends. And two, I would really like to get these rate increases underway. Thank you.
Paul, do you have any more slides on this, or are you looking for us to start our panel's discussion?
I have one more. I just want to make one more, one more bullet comment, and just for completeness, the last con, for the cons, the risk of not receiving a clear recommendation from the RAC, and you might recall the last RAC, there were a few policy questions that they didn't address. The second issue is it would dilute the RAC's attention from other critical policy matters. We really need to focus on the affordability issue as well. So, and all the other things that you discussed. So at this point, President Sanders, we have two proposed motions that you could consider, but maybe this is the best time for you to have your discussions and formulate the questions. We can do them in a different order. We did question one, which is, should we do something this evening? This fall, which would be strategy number 2, or should we leave it alone, which would be strategy number 1? And then the next question would be along the lines of whether or not the RAC should be tasked with providing a recommendation on the frequency of rate increases. So we can take them in any order you want, but that really concludes my formal presentation.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Perhaps maybe going back to the present estimates and then letting the board ponder question number 1 via this table would be a good place to start. So question number 1 is to either adopt strategy 1A or strategy 1B versus strategy 2, option A or B. And it sounds as though Commissioner Bagnall, and I don't want to put words into Commissioner Bagnall's mouth or Commissioner Doan's mouth, but they both seemed to be proponents for strategy 2. And I would also throw in my hat on that option as well. Commissioner Duggan?
Thank you. I am ready to weigh in. I share the exact same concerns that have been discussed, especially Commissioner Magdal's about what we want the rate advisory committee to really focus on. And again, my big concern is that we need to communicate to the customers that right now we have moving targets. And I for one, would lean in toward strategy 2 with option 2B, and going forward, not at every 6-month interval, but maybe every year, evaluate what we're going to be doing for the next year, and set the rates for the next year, either at 5.5 for 2024 or another number for 2025 based on the latest and greatest. But we can use these projections to say what we hope will happen based on what we know currently. And I don't know if I'm making myself very clear or not, but I really want to emphasize the fact that we need to communicate to the rate advisory committee and our customers that we're going to be watching this and try to make the most prudent choice financially. And as it relates to other options, the RAC advisory committee can help us with figuring out how things are going to move forward in the future with different programs. But again, I'm with 2B.
Commissioner Schmidt, do you have a position you'd like to express?
2B looks good to me.
Wonderful, thank you. Could we just get kind of a verification? Commissioner Doan, I had put words into your mouth saying that you were probably opting for strategy 2. Could you confirm? Could you confirm your preference?
I'm a 2B person.
Yes. And Commissioner Bagnall makes a wonderful joke in the chat, to be or not to be. That is the question. Indeed.
That is the question, and to me is the answer.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds unanimous in our discussions. We might as well then at this point take on that proposed motion number 1, and that I would ask to receive a motion in a second that the Board of Commissioners direct management to prepare the financial plan based on strategy number 2B, and to present the financial plan for approval at the board's regular meeting on May 18th, 2022.
This is Commissioner Bagnall. I so move.
Thank you.
This is
This
Commissioner
is
Duggan.
Jim Doan. I'll second.
Thank you.
Looks like Jim Duggan and I talked over each other. Jim, it's yours.
No, I think you made the most impassioned discussion of this, so I think you should go. But I'll defer to the chair.
We'll let Commissioner Doan second this. Debbie, may we please get a roll call vote?
Commissioner Bagnall,
Yes.
Commissioner Doan,
Yes.
Commissioner Duggan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Yes.
Great, thank you. And then to wrap up, we need to address question number 2, which was.
Commissioner Sanders, I'm not sure we really have an issue with, it's up to the board's pleasure, but I don't know as if we need to have question number 2 answered, because I think essentially you did that by saying you were going to go with option B.
Okay.
But if the board would prefer to make that specific, then you can pass this motion. But I think we understand what your direction is, which is to create a financial plan around strategy 2, and that we're not going to refer to the RAC. So if you want to make, if you want to do it by motion, that's fine, but I'm clear on what our direction is.
Okay. How do the other board members feel? Do they feel this needs to be formalized?
I agree with Paul. I think that I don't like putting things formally in the minutes that say, oh, we're going to convene or not convene the rate advisory committee unless we're fully intending to take their direction. And we've pretty much gone over that right now. So I think I agree with Paul Matthews. I think this proposed motion is unnecessary at this time and may even be deleterious. If that's how you say that.
This is Commissioner Duggan. I agree with that. However, I think if we do have some sort of a rate advisory committee form, that we need to receive input on all of the district's activities, but it doesn't necessarily referring the matter to them to give a recommendation. I think we need to receive input, and I believe there's a distinction between those two functions.
Okay. Good. Paul?
So Commissioner Duggan, what we will bring in May, our plan is to bring a charter for the RAC, but that charter for the RAC will not include this policy question. It will include the other 2 policy questions that we discussed before. And so this gives us enough direction to create that RAC charter to bring to you. And then of course you will have your opportunity to make any comments or adjustments to the RAC charter that you see fit. So I think we're in good shape here. And in fact, I think we are going to meet with the Finance Committee to review some of the issues with the RAC charter, and if directed by the Finance Committee, I think we can bring that back to this full board at the work session in May, just to do one more check-in. If you aren't sick and tired of hearing me talk about this yet.
This is Jim Doan. I just want to make sure that the rate advisory committee is aware of the need for dealing with people who are stressed financially. And I'm sure they will be, but I just want to include that in their charter. That, what should we do about the people who are stressed financially?
Yeah.
Oh,
all right.
If I could just quickly speak that point is well taken, Commissioner Doan. We, in fact, in May, will be coming back to you with how we're going to be doing our outreach to all the various communities that are going to be impacted by these increases. So our goal here is to make sure that there's a strong voice at the table.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
I guess I'll wrap
Marvelous.
with our next steps here, which we will bring the financial plan to the board at the regular May meeting to seek approval of the financial plan based on the strategy that you just directed us. We'll also be bringing the charter, and as I mentioned, we'll be working with the Finance Committee, and we may bring back to you more information on the charter. I also included in your packet, but did not intend to cover, an update on the financial performance. So I will skip to the end of that unless there are any questions that you might have on the financial performance.
Nope.
See, none. That concludes my formal presentation. Thank you so much. I think we have the direction we need to move forward. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Oh yeah, according to my script, we move on to the informational presentation. So I don't know if I'm exceeding my duties as board chair, but Paul, go home and have a happy birthday. You are excused. No,
Well,
you're forced to leave. Get up and go home.
I need to stay for Andrew's presentation. He's one of my teammates, so I will stay put, but thank you.
Well, that's very kind of you. In that case, then let's not postpone this any longer and move on to our informational presentation on the customer information system implementation update by Andrew Carlstrom. Andrew?
Great. Thank you, President Sanders. Good evening, Board of Commissioners. So update tonight is fairly brief. And what I'm going to be covering is a review of the customer portal, as well as updated information on the customer communications plan for the rollout. And some of this will be a review from information that Frank Reed and Heather Ann Brommel provided to you back in February. So as a reminder, I do this every time that we meet. What are we doing of this project? We're replacing the legacy billing system with a commercial off-the-shelf customer information system, or CIS. This is a partnership project between Tvwd and Clean Water Services. The new system is Open SmartFlex, and our go live date for both customers and for staff users is July 5th, in about 2.5 months. So as a review with Open SmartFlex in this implementation, we are getting a new self-service portal for customers. Some of the things we'll be emphasizing in our communication is the 24/7 access, the easy payment methods. We'll be promoting key messages, news and updates in the portal, the graphic display of usage and payment data. Customers will have the ability to submit service requests and enroll in programs. And of course, we'll have contact and social media information for both Tvwd and Clean Water Services. The registration is going to be very simple in this review. There will be a re-registration. It's 3 steps. It's registering, verifying, and connecting. Registration is very straightforward. The verification will be through a verification code. And then connecting, one nice feature of the portal is the ability to look up your account number if you don't have it. So Frank presented to you the communications plan. What we want to do with the plan is to educate current customers about Open SmartFlex, and over time we also want to increase the number of portal users. The guiding principles for the plan development that both Tvwd and Clean Water Services were co-owners that created joint messaging. We want to have open, transparent customer communications, and this is a two-way dialogue as we receive information for customers on their needs. The key messages: why are we making the change? What are the key features and benefits of the new portal and system? The ease of use, and how to get assistance when it's needed. The primary strategies we're using in the communication plan, both direct and self-service. In direct, it's bills and emails. And then self-service, it's primarily the website and social media. So here's what it looks like on the schedule. So in May, we'll be updating the website with information. We'll be notifying monthly pay plan customers, and we'll have newsletter articles. In June, we'll have a coming soon email to customers. Also, again, reminding the monthly pay plan customers. We go live on July 5th. And then looking at our two-month increments after go live in July and August, we'll have bill messaging. We'll have an informational handout as needed. We'll have newsletter articles again. And then for September, October, we'll have bill inserts, printing on envelopes. We'll have another email to customers. And then as needed in certain situations, banners and flyers. Social media messages will also be posted throughout spring and summer. And then we're also planning to have this fall a live virtual portal demonstration for customers. So this will be going on for several months, but this is what the schedule looks like at a glance, and we wanted to keep you and the public informed. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Andrew, this is Todd Sanders, and I apologize. I should have asked this question months ago. And that is, will the portal be at least bilingual? Will there be a Spanish option for people?
Yes, there's English and there's a Spanish option, yes.
Thank you. All right. Looks like that's all the questions we have for you this evening, Andrew. Thank you very much. And I guess like our WWSS, we're talking about implementation, so it's exciting and close.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, with no further business on the agenda this evening, I will call this meeting adjourned, and then I will offer